let's talk about the big story. And by big story, I mean the biggest story of the year, right? When thousands of people stormed the U.S. Capitol 6 days into 2021, the country and the world watched in horror. So the dust has been kind of settling ever since. It continues to settle right now. Police have arrested hundreds of people as that dust has settled, people who breached the building that day or committed acts of violence outside. It has become one of the largest criminal investigations in U.S. history, with arrests in 40 states, including one man from Southwest Washington, who sat down with our Iboshi to explain himself. It's the first time we've heard from a local person who actually stormed our nation's capital that day.
Federal investigators have used countless hours of video and photos to help identify hundreds of people who entered the U.S. Capitol on January 6th, and Jeff Grace is one of them.
There was a photo that was widely circulated, and the suggestion is that that's you behind this gentleman. Is that you?
Yes.
At the time, the battleground man didn't realize the significance of his wrongdoing or the notoriety that would follow.
I get a call from the wife back here, and she says, "You're on TV." And I said, "Oh, okay."
After his arrest, Grace lost his job as a long-haul truck driver. He's facing up to a year in prison after federal prosecutors charged him with knowingly entering or remaining in any restricted building or grounds without lawful authority.
Why did you enter the Capitol building?
You know, I really don't know. To be honest, I don't know. I had no intention of it. And I don't want to say swept up by the crowd or swept up by my heart or swept up by this. I don't really have an answer for that.
Grace said he went to Washington, D.C. along with his adult son to support President Trump, who had falsely claimed he won the election.
Do I believe Donald Trump should have been our president? Yes, I do. 100%.
Because?
Because he won the election.
After attending a pro-Trump rally, Grace said he and his son became separated, and he started walking toward the Capitol building. According to court records, Grace entered the building after seeing an open door. According to Grace, he passed by two Capitol police officers. They appeared to be overwhelmed by the number of protesters and looked scared. Once inside, the FBI said Grace walked to the rotunda, telling federal agents he decided to leave after witnessing several people causing damage to the Capitol property.
It's disgusting. It's not okay. It's not America. It's not freedom. It's a bad representation of what we really are, what we stand for.
Grace said he played no part in the violence on January 6th.
5 people died, including a Capitol police officer in this.
Yes, sir.
How does that sit with you?
It's sad. It's tragic. There's no justification of it. And I would pray that if any of my actions caused any of that I would pray for forgiveness from their family, I guess. I don't know.
Grace said he's not on social media, and he didn't take any photos or video, but others did. According to the FBI, an informant called the tip line to report Jeff Grace of Battleground, Washington, was at the U.S. Capitol on January 6th.
What you did, was it illegal?
Of course. You've asked me this 3 times. Yes. It was illegal.
Grace hopes that by speaking publicly, people will understand that, like it or not, the man in the background of this photo has a story. The question is, are we willing to listen?
That I'm not. First of all, I apologize if I've offended anybody. Not my intention at all. But hey, let's get together and we'll visit. And maybe I can teach you something, or maybe you can teach me something. But maybe we can pull together and work for the good of this country, because tearing it down isn't okay.
Okay, Iboshi joining us now. So Kyle, curious, just, from a journalist standpoint, what were you hoping to learn from interviewing this man?
Really a couple of things. First, I reported initially when Jeff Grace was arrested. We received a press release from Department of Justice. His name was in headlines, but we really didn't know who this gentleman was or anything about his background. So For one, it was an opportunity to meet with him, find out a little bit more about who he was, and have him explain exactly what happened and why. Secondarily, there's been a lot of focus on potential communication or coordination among groups who were there that day on January 6th. So that was one of my big questions. Was this in some way coordinated? Was he working with anybody? He said, no, nobody bought his plane ticket. He paid for that on his own. There was no coordination from what he could tell. And also, he's not part of some group, not the Proud Boys, not the 3%ers. He knows people who are part of those groups, but he is not, he says. Additionally, he's not active on social media.
Now, the 300 plus arrests that were made, I'm sure everybody has a different story here, but when it comes to his, what is next for him in this journey?
Right. So obviously legal proceedings will play out. What's interesting is Washington Post reported even today that federal prosecutors are considering plea deals, especially for some of the lesser charges similar to those that Mr. Grace faces. So there is that possibility, but he's got a court date coming up next month, and we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah. Okay. Iboshi, thank you.
Now, during that interview, you heard that man, Jeff Grace, tell Kyle something that we know is not true, that he believes to be true, that President Trump won the election. Now, I know what you might be thinking. How can someone believe that lie at this point, right? Well, first off, I think it's important to point out that he is not alone in thinking that. Nowhere near it, actually. Pew Research Center took a poll after the insurrection between January 8th and 12th. I know it's been a while since then, but this was immediately after, and they found that 75% of people at that time who voted for President Trump told them that they believe that he actually won the election in November, which, again, is not true. Only 22% of Trump voters correctly believe that President Biden won. It's a pretty alarming statistic. And even though this is a national poll, we really don't have to look far to see why people locally here find this maybe believable, because we saw it with the official arm of Oregon State Republican Party, a degree of it. Just a couple of weeks after the Capitol was stormed, the Oregon GOP put out a statement calling that assault on the Capitol a false flag operation, which is also completely untrue. We asked every state Republican lawmaker at the time in Oregon to condemn this statement, and most of them did, except for 6 state senators who either never responded to us or they said no comment. And one of them was Senator Dallas Hurd, who was just elected to chair the Oregon GOP. So my point is, false narratives don't stop with individuals like the man Kyle spoke with. When powerful figures and institutions also push them, it makes these lies a lot more dangerous and harder to combat with the truth.